And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at This War of Mine, the board game. Now this War of Mine is based on a very popular computer game. It's also an app. In fact, after I played this board game, I was very curious about the game. I downloaded the app on my iPad and played it several times. And this game takes place in an unspecified country that is undergoing a civil war, and the rebels are stuck in a city, and the city's been surrounded by troops. It's under siege, and you are controlling a bunch of survivors who are trapped in a house in this city, and they are essentially just trying to survive, just trying to keep your spirits up, to keep your hunger from going berserk, just to stay alive. Lots of other people are in this city. Baser instincts will prevail. People are stealing and looting. How are you going to handle it? This is a game that follows your story as you do that. This is a cooperative game. You're doing it together. Let's take a look. The game here is, this is a house that you're all in. You're going to start with 3 characters. So there's miniatures for the characters that are going to be placed in the building. And each character has a card with some information about them, a prowess, empathy, a special ability that they have, some spirit things that will come into play as the game comes by, how much they can carry in inventory, and you'll put a colored token on each one of them just so you remember which character has which colored token on the game board. And no player is a character. Together, you're trying to get these people to survive, and you're going to be surviving through a series of events. These are random, but there's chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then an ending event, and you have to survive and accomplish some objectives for each chapter. And if you survive, I guess you win. If you also need to do these, where soldiers is armed with civilians, and so you need to discard a firearm. If you do peace, otherwise they will beat you and wound you. Each character starts with hunger 2. And hunger is one of many different things that can happen to players over the course of this game. Players can also have illness, they can have wounds, and these things can range from 1 to 4, like you're tired, fatigue. And when you're playing, if you have any of these in front of you, so let's say I have all of these, wounds 3, illness 1, fatigue 3, hunger 1, I have no actions because the wounds are stopping me from having any actions on my turn. However, if I had no wounds and just these, I would have 1 action because the fatigue takes out 2 of them. If I just had these, I would have 1 action. So because everyone starts with hunger 2, everyone has 2 actions because the 3rd action is blacked out. And if you ever get to the 4th level on one of these, I would recommend not doing it because you go read an epilogue for your character and it's probably not going to be a positive thing. So you start out as hungry, and together players are going to be taking actions with these characters. Now the rule book is written in such a way that you're supposed to read the rules and hand it to the next player, then the next player does something, hand it to the next player. And in the game, that's the way it happens too, where you will do something. And so the first thing you'll do each turn is you'll draw off the top an event deck and see what that event card does. And this is a great event. This is an airdrop, which drops a bunch of goodies down. You also notice there's numbers here at the bottom of the card. These numbers will come into play at different times. Also, if you're playing with a cold level, you'll add cold markers to this space. It means it's getting colder. So an event thing happens first. Then your characters are going to move around and take actions. This action might be getting rid of this rubble card so that you can get to these heap cards and then search these cards and find a bunch of goods. Players are going to start with goods. You have some components and wood and water and a shovel and a lockpick. So you can use these goods, but you're basically searching your own house during the day with a number of actions that you can take. Some of the actions you can take, you can go to these fitting cards and you can try to build something. So I might say, well, we need to build a radio, or we need to build a moonshine still, or a workshop, or a heater, or a stove, or a bed. If you have the right things, you can build that and then put this somewhere in the building, in one of the rooms, and then you can start using that. And then later on, you'll have a chance to find higher upgraded items and build these items too. Sometimes these will upgrade the items that you've already built. So that's what players are going to be doing during the day. You'll take turns moving the characters and giving them however many actions they have. At night, each character has to drink water. So you need to have a water for each character, or else their hunger or misery might go up. And they also have to eat food, or your hunger is going to be problematic. Then, during the evening, you got to decide what to do with each character. Some of them can sleep on the floor. If you have a bed, you can put them in bed. You can put a person on guard duty, or you can send characters out to scavenge. Scavenging is a main part of the game. You will do that by picking one of these buildings to go to, and the building that you pick is going to have a certain number of exploration cards. And you'll be going through these exploration cards and dealing with things that you find, searching heaps, running into things. You can take goods with you, so you might take a lockpick with you in case you run into a door. You might take a weapon in with you in case you run into a bad guy. Sometimes it will instruct you to find a resident, and you'll rats, survivors, soldiers, reality impact, rebels. You run into different people. Sometimes you'll find a pile of goods depending on where you're searching. So this is also very useful. So you're going to want to go out, and more often than not, you're going to need to refer to the book of scripts. Now, I don't want to spoil this book for you. It's full of paragraphs. There is 2,000, or actually 1,947 paragraphs in here. And many times the numbers on the cards or something in the book will tell you to read a specific number, and you will go read that number. Sometimes it will give you an option. Sometimes it's just a story. Sometimes it's something that will affect you. Sometimes it will cause condition. Sometimes it will make you draw a pile from a different color. Sometimes you're not sure which number you'll draw from a pile of cards telling you which number to pick from. And you're just really never quite sure what these things are going to do. And you'll find all sorts of different things that will happen to you, and then you'll come back. Meanwhile, the people on guard duty will be dealing with a night raid. So some of the night raids are worse than others. There's ones here with the exclamation point, and then there's just regular night raids. So maybe for my night raids, we're just thinking memories, or maybe there's starving people who come at night, or hobos, or whatever. Or maybe it's just a quiet night. But whatever it is, you're going to have to deal with them and maybe fight them off, and there's different dice you'll use depending what weapon you have. And they will likely steal your stuff and possibly wound a person who is on guard duty. And so after everyone you come back, and after you do the scavenging and find your things and deal with the night raid, then dawn comes. There's a narrative action card and a fate card. The fate card will have a bunch of things happen. This will often be based on what the players have written on their cards. You'll resolve any other things, if there's cold tokens and so on. And then sometimes a narrative action, it will be great. You'll find this, and here we found the knife. That's pretty cool. So there's various things that will happen. And then you start another day. Now, this is a very, very, very quick summary of how the game works. As I said, there's two sides to the board. So there's another board that you can play here. It's just a different setup and different things that you can find as you go throughout the building. But everything is going to change mostly on the book of scripts, the locations that you search through, because different locations are going to show up depending on where they are. The rules for this game are very short. However, as time goes by, they'll introduce a new rule, and in the book of scripts, you will turn to maybe a section here. For example, this here shows you the evening phase FAQ. And so there's different spots in the book, usually they're in the hundreds, where it will give you more rules that are written here. Like here's the scavenging phase FAQ, and it will tell you exactly how to search and do things. However, the book and the rules tell you very clearly that as you're playing this game, you don't have to play real hard and fast with the rules. You as a group decide how things work and what's going to happen. There is tons of items and tokens that you're going to find as the game goes by. From coffee to weapon parts, you can put them together. Maybe you find a broken assault rifle that you can fix. Here, coffee, you'll have a chance to trade with different people. You can get sick and you'll need to manage your wounds and take medicine. You can make moonshine and trade that with other people. Maybe your people will get upset. You have someone on your team who wants to smoke cigarettes and you don't have cigarettes, so you have to make them. There's just a lot going on in this game, and you're just basically trying to survive, something I'm not quite sure is possible. I tell you folks, there's so much to talk about here. First of all, I think we should take a look at the computer game itself. Like I said, when we were done with this, I wanted to check out the computer game, and I went and I played it several times. I want to say I played the video game like 5 times now, but I'm not sure I want to play it anymore, but I'll get back to that in a second. But the computer game in this, it's a very faithful representation. There's differences. In the computer game, you can only send out one person scavenging. Here you can send out multiple people. The computer game, there's some other minor various changes in it. In this game, if you really want to go find another person at your party, it's pretty easy to do in the board game as compared to the computer game. You just hope you find other people. The storylines are pretty much the same. I haven't yet run across any that were identical in here and in the computer game, but they're, like I said, this is a very faithful adaptation. If you like the computer game, you will probably like this one. But should you like this game? See, this is kind of an interesting game because it's depressing. All right, this is not a happy game. You are going to run across things. This is definitely a game for adults. You're going to run across things which are horrific in this book. They're well written, they're interesting, there's a lot going on, but there's not a lot of happiness and joy in here. There's like tiny dots of sunshine amidst clouds and clouds of gray. And that's going to be a tough thing. This game initially reminded me of, when I played through it, of Robinson Crusoe, because you are trying to, in Robinson Crusoe, you're trying to feed yourself and get this and survive. But while Robinson Crusoe had a sense of adventure lurking behind it, this one has a sense of despair. And you're constantly just trying to keep these people not happy or full or well, but okay and not so hungry and only slightly wounded. That's really what this game is. It's kind of a game of just maintaining status quo, maintaining being alive. And that's a tough thing. You're not going to bring this out and people are laughing and joking. In fact, it feels kind of odd to laugh and joke about this. And sometimes we're just like, and one person was like, why are we playing this? It's really bringing me down. When I played the computer game, it does the same thing, to the point where I'm not sure I want to play the computer game again. I guess you can win. And in this board game, I'm sure you can win. I haven't yet. But at what cost? I mean, you can do really bad things in this game in the name of survival. You will have really bad things done to your characters in the name of survival. And that's a really tough bridge to cross. Let's talk about the game itself. The components for this game are fantastic, really well done. And like I said, it's a faithful reproduction of the video game. And they did a really great job between the artwork and the pieces. There's a lot of stuff in this game, and the effort to detail shows. However, I'm not sold on the rules. The rules set in this game is one where they're like, we will teach you as you go through the game, based on video games that have a tutorial. And so this one is, when you get here, you do this and you learn this, and like I showed you, you have to go search through the book to find that, and they're like, hey, kind of just do whatever rules you want. I don't feel like that works for a board game. Board games work because they have strict rules. You follow those rules. And I know that some people might disagree with me on this, but I just cannot see a game being fun when players can pretty much do what they want. Also, because you need structure to a game to follow it. But also, like, oh, what's the rule for this? Well, that's an FAQ, and that's somewhere in this, in this book of scripts. And I'm looking here, and I'm pretty sure that they're all 100s, okay? So here's 400, that's about the dusk phase, but I'm looking for a specific rule, and I can't find it in here. And in fact, there are rules that I never ever did find. And for the longest time, all those numbers all over the cards, I wasn't sure if we were just supposed to pick one and start randomly reading it, or if something would tell us to pick one of those, which we found out later was the case. But then we still weren't sure, can we just pick a number and read it anyway? It's kind of weird. We were never quite sure what to do at any given point, and I guess this is the author said that they did this deliberately, but I don't think this is a positive thing for a game like this. I think that you could have had straightforward rules and still have everything else in here. And a good rule book would have helped this game out more so. I don't want to play this game again. But I don't know if I want to say that it's a bad game. I think the game is actually quite good. But it doesn't give me good feelings. So this game is almost like a work of art. It's like one of those movies you watch and you're like, oh, wow, what a good movie. But I don't need to see it again. Unlike a popcorn flick where you're like, woo! This isn't a game that makes you, this is a game that makes you think, but not thinking about how do I beat this game. If I do this and move this piece here and do this. It's not that. It's a game that makes you think about, wow, this is what people go through, ordinary people go through in a war. And that's great. And I think the game is good for that. But I don't know that I need it on my shelves. This is kind of the thing where I can admire it and go, okay, wow, that's interesting. I'm glad I played it. I saw some interesting things, saw this, but it's just too depressing for me to keep it around. If you're a fan of the video game, you're probably going to like this because it's the same thing. If you had never even heard of the video game and you're like, oh, I like cooperative games, you might like this, but be warned, it's likely not going to have a happy ending. It is a game that causes you to muse and think about things, and it's good for that purpose. Just know what you're getting yourself in for. It's kind of a complicated thing, right? A lot of people are going to be raving about this. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be talking about how great this is, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of people playing it all the time because it's a tough thing to do. Anyway, that's this War of Mine, the board game. Dice Tower Judgment, depressingly approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!